So my name's Troy Haines. I'm one of the founders of theSPACE. I'm here with Mr. Saul Singer, the author, one of the authors, co-authors of Startup Nation, which is a book I read some years ago, at least 5 years ago. It's an amazing book around how Israel became one of the most innovative countries in the world, despite and maybe because of the adversity in Israel. So thanks for taking the time to chat. I really appreciate it. And you're working with the Australian government on the innovation science agenda, on the board for that, and working to help. You've just recently completed the 2030 report on innovation for Australia.
Yeah, that came out I think in January. There was a bunch of press around that. Had 30 recommendations for all kinds of parts of the science, R&D, startups, entrepreneurship, small business, all these different programs to promote innovation in Australia. So the question now sort of is, what's next?
What's it? So as part of that report, we were briefly talking offline. There's 3 big initiatives. You called them moonshots. What was the other term that you did?
In the report, it's called national missions, but I like to think of moonshots.
Moonshots. And you mentioned there was health being one of the sectors, the Great Barrier Reef and saving the Great Barrier Reef, and hydrogen fuel.
Yep.
So could you just talk briefly around health firstly? So
the idea with health is to really move to a completely new way of thinking about health. Because in order for Australia to be the healthiest country in the world, and actually I think beyond that, because right now Australia is already number 6 in the world in life expectancy, very healthy country.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, so moving to number 1 is, a small bit forward. It's not that far.
Who's number 1?
I'm not sure. It's not the United States. It's way down there, like 30 or something.
Yeah, okay.
But I think Israel's probably pretty high up.
Yep.
But we really need to move to a whole new level right now. The numbers of people dying from heart disease, cancer, things like that are really enormous, and I think we can actually reduce that by somewhere in the order of half by detecting these conditions much earlier. And that's just a matter of going to a data-based approach. We're doing predictive maintenance in cars and jet engines. Mm-hmm. We're doing, Google's predicting what you're going to search, Amazon predicting what you're going to buy. Everyone's doing data to make predictions.
So we're sort of starting to see this happening with wearable technology like Fitbits and the Muse, even measuring and influencing your brainwave activity. So it's coming. So it's kind of like more of that, and then capturing that data, and then what we can do with that data.
So the things like Fitbits are, the beginning.
Yeah.
They're beginning at least getting people sort of conscious and into wearing a sensor, but it's not enough to kind of collect this data personally. You're not going to figure much out. What you need to do is collect a lot of different data at the same time, sort of put it in a pot and find the patterns that come out of it that are essentially biomarkers that tell you, you have a problem way before you actually feel any symptoms.
Yeah.
Because the way it works now is the only time we start with our health system is when we feel bad and go to the doctor. Yeah. And often that's much too late. It's certainly much harder to do medicine at that stage.
Yeah. So that's exciting. It's an area that I'm quite passionate about, and I look forward to seeing how space can play in that arena moving forward. And the Reef, you're up here in Cairns to explore what's happening in the space, and moonshot saving the reef is something that's dear to all of us as patrons of planet Earth. So can you talk to us more about that?
So I'm here to learn more about the problem, which is huge, that the reef is dying, and and it seems like the kind of thing you can't do anything about because a lot of it's connected to global warming, and it'd be good. Everybody's working to try to deal with that, but in the short term, it's not so easy. But I'm actually optimistic that there are ways to save the reef, even if you can't. While we're waiting to tackle global warming, there's exciting efforts that are going on now, and I think one idea that, first of all, there's the data-based approach to understand what's going on in the reef and maybe predict it. Like if you can detect, you have all those sensors on the reef, and you can actually understand that a bleaching event is going to occur. There are things that you can do. But also, I liked an idea of taking algae that's resistant to heat and trying to spread. They're naturally occurring algae that are more resistant to heat.
Yeah, well.
And so, if you had that, then you wouldn't have the bleaching event when it gets really hot.
Yep.
Something like that. That's kind of creative stuff that can really make a difference.
Yeah, awesome. It's I'm confident as well using the technology that's available and the smart minds that are entering this entrepreneurial space. I'm hopeful that we can have an impact. And hydrogen, did you want to talk briefly on that?
Well, it's an idea for combining hydrogen as a fuel with solar and wind. So it's kind of a way to cover the times when the solar and wind isn't working. If you're using some of that energy to create hydrogen, it takes energy, and then you can use the hydrogen instead, so basically that would mean all clean. When you burn hydrogen, it doesn't produce any carbon dioxide. So it's an idea to kind of boost clean energy.
Yeah, awesome. Really important. Well, what about someone? What would you say to somebody that's just getting started? Like these are three kind of areas or industries within Australia that we've sort of set as moonshots. But not everyone's going to have an idea in that space. But someone else that's just getting started or maybe working on an idea out there, what would you say to them?
So, one of the, I think, most important things for entrepreneurs is to be working on an important problem. And I think that entrepreneurs often sort of imagine a problem that may not be the right one to work on. And so it's very important to talk to the people, let's say with the Reef, and understand the problems that they have and see if there's anything you can do to help. For instance, some of the sensors they're planning on using for the Reef cost $30,000 a piece.
Wow.
And
that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can't buy many of those. So, what if somebody came up with a much cheaper sensor that you could spread on much more of the Reef, get more data?
Yeah.
There are all kinds of things like that, but you have to start with understanding the right problem. In a way, understanding the problems is more important than the solution. Once you understand what's worth solving, the solution can be the easier part.
I see it all the time because we work at theSPACE very much at the grassroots level, helping people to turn their ideas into reality, and people working on something that there is no problem. They're not actually solving a problem for somebody, and it's just like classic entrepreneurial mistake 101.
Yeah. In fact, it happens in Israel also. We're a very kind of tech-oriented country, so let's say you have some scientist or some technologist who has this amazing new technology, and they think, oh wow, there's tons of applications for this. I'll try to build one of them, and often they build the wrong one because they don't understand markets and understand what problem is worth solving. Technology is essentially a solution, not so it's better to start with the problem rather than the solution.
And then communicating with the market as you go, because just because you come up with a solution doesn't mean it's going to fit with that market. it's iterative process. I would like to suggest to get it, that product and that market to have that fit, so that it becomes commercially viable as well.
Right, but often a big part of the process, I mean, they call it lean startup, you know, to try to find product market fit, and really the beginning of the process is to talk to people. You got to talk to people who you think are going to be your customers, and often you'll find out that the problem they care about most is not the one you're working on. So that means, okay, so switch, pivot, work on that problem that people really need to solve, rather than one that people kind of need a little bit.
Do you know what I see? That's the biggest challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs have, is just that fear, or for whatever reason, not going out and talking to their customers. They'd rather build something in isolation, and because it's creative and it's fun, and they think they're actually in business, but the reality is that it's increasing their risk because they're using their resources, and then when they finally go out to market because their resources are running low, they realise they've done it all wrong. It's like, get to market early and talk to your customers as quickly as you can.
Yeah, there's this concept, again, part of the lean startup method is a minimum viable product. You really, you don't want to build something complicated. You want to decide, you know, what are your assumptions in terms of that this thing is going to be needed by those people. Build a minimum you need to test that theory, and then go out and say, you know, try this, or what do you think of this? Is this useful? You don't want to go ahead and develop the whole thing and then try selling it, and you find out it's not a good problem.
Which makes logical sense, but it seems for whatever reason it's counterintuitive, because people, I think maybe it's the fear factor, not wanting to go and talk to people. It's something that I'm constantly working on and encouraging people. You've got to get out there and talk to your customers early on. Use a minimal viable product. Test your assumptions. Make sure that you're actually solving a problem for somebody. Otherwise, you're increasing your risk. And I think that's why they say 9 out of 10 startups fail. It's because they're not practicing that, essentially.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Really great.
Well, it's good luck to us all in terms of working to save the reef and become the #1 healthiest country in the world, and our exports into the hydrogen space as well. So thank you for your time, and thanks for visiting the space here in Cairns.
Good to be here.
Awesome.